Well, good morning and welcome to Lakeshore Christian Church. We're so glad that you're here today and glad that that you're joining us for this Mother's Day and also our child dedication. You know, I'm going to begin with a confession, all right? A confession. For many preachers, and this one included, a Mother's Day sermon is the most difficult sermon of the year. You want it to be good. You know, you want it to be fresh and interesting and encouraging. You want it to be challenging and comforting. And did I say good? I mean, you want it to be good. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is that most churches, the most influential members and the most dedicated servants are the women of your church. They normally are the ones that get things done. And now 50 or 60 years ago, when the majority of moms didn't work outside of the home, this may not have been so surprising. But it remains true today. And when most women are struggling to balance things like career and family, they still, numbers-wise, they have us men beat when it comes to the measure of dedication and service to the local church. So I believe that a Mother's Day sermon is important, and it's an important message to bring. You know, there's an old joke about a preacher who had served a church for 3 years, and he resigned after 3 years, and he accepted a call to another church. And a friend asked him, why did you leave after only 3 years? Were there some problems in the church? And he said, oh, no, there was no problems in the church. It's just that I only have 3 Mother's Day sermons. I'm not going to tell you exactly how many Mother's Day sermons that I have in my file, but I expect to be around a little while. But I will confess that I told that same story about 4 years ago. Another obvious reason that I want a Mother's Day sermon to be especially good is that I had a mother that was worthy of honor. And so I would like to honor her in that way as well. Moms, I want you to know, in case that you've almost forgotten, your influence never ends. It doesn't end. You will never stop making a difference in the lives of your children, even though they grow older and their lives become busier, and sometimes they move far away, and sometimes the phone calls, they become less frequent, but you will always have a place of influence in the lives of your children. So moms, whether your children are young or whether they're old, today we're going to talk about how you can continue to have that godly influence in the lives of your children. Now, I do want to say this. This message is specifically, it's Mother's Day, and I'm doing a Mother's Day message that we don't always do. Sometimes we're in a series and we just continue with that. But today, it's especially for mothers. But the principles that we're going to talk about today are for all of us. If we want to continue to have a godly influence in the lives of other people and also in the lives of our children. And last week, John, our passage of Scripture, John talked about the Great Commission, making disciples of all nations, going and baptizing and teaching. And that aspect of things, it was about relationships. And relationships come prior to having influence. And so what we're going to talk about today, it is for all of us, but especially for Mother's Day here. Many successful people give credit to their mother. I was watching a story one time about Denzel Washington on TV, and he talked about how much influence his mother had in his life and how she prayed for him and encouraged him along his path to stardom. Heisman Trophy winner Tim Tebow often talks about publicly about the influence that his mother had in his life. As a matter of fact, I don't remember, several years ago, they did a commercial together that was on the Super Bowl. It's not that all uncommon to hear successful people say, hey, I owe it to my mom. I heard a comedian on Pure Comedy on XM satellite radio that I listen to sometimes, and who, by the way, had small children. And she said, I'm aware that there are many people who attribute their success to their mother. But neither can I ignore the fact that the word mother is the tattoo of choice for convicted felons. And then she said, how does a mother know which direction her influence is going to take? She's being a little facetious, but the truth is, moms, you need to realize that while you do have tremendous influence, and any of us have influence on anybody else in our lives, that influence does have limits. It has limits, and ultimately the choices that your children make are their own choices. Your influence will give them advantages, but ultimately the choice is theirs. So today I want to talk about how to maximize our influence, how to maximize the influence in the lives of our children, whether they're toddlers, whether they're teenagers or adults with families of their own. Here's a few things that we can do to maximize influence in the lives of others. The first thing we need to do is we need to pray. Now that seems so simple, but it is the most important. You always begin with prayer. I heard about a Mother's Day card that said on the front, Mom, I remember that little prayer that you always used to say for me every day. And then you opened up the card and it said, the words of that prayer, God help you if you ever do that again. I've had that prayer said about me, and I have said that prayer over and over. I guess all of us have been the subject of that prayer once or twice, because I'm sure that every mother has prayed it. But there's a great example of praying mom in the Bible, and her name is Hannah. And more than anything else, Hannah wanted to have children, but she had none. And in desperation, she cried out to God. And the Bible uses the phrase in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 12. It says this. It says that she kept on praying to the Lord. She kept on praying to the Lord. Her prayers were persistent. And eventually, God answered her prayers and gave her a son. His name was Samuel. And then she said, if you drop down to verse 27 of 1 Samuel chapter 1, I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. Now, 1 Samuel references Hannah again a few times, and it records a beautiful prayer that she prayed. One of the prayers that she prayed, she said, there is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Sounds like a song we sing. That's her prayers. And then in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 21, it says this, and the Lord was gracious to Hannah. She conceived and she gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. Man, when he answers prayer, he really answers prayer. Every time Hannah is mentioned in the Bible, she is either praying or she's having children. Those are the two things. Those are the two things that we find out about her. And she dedicated her first son, she dedicated Samuel to the service of God, and he became a great man because Hannah was a woman of prayer. And today we're going to dedicate a couple of little ones at the end of our service. And it's the power of God which comes into someone's life, but it begins with prayer. Prayer makes a difference. Abraham Lincoln said, I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. T.D. Jakes says, in teaching me to pray, my mother never set me down at the kitchen table and said, son, this is how you pray. First you say this and then you say that. No, she taught me to pray through her example. Listen, when you pray for your children, not only do you ignite the power of God in their lives, you give them example to follow. Your commitment to prayer teaches the power of prayer. So pray. Begin with prayer. There's another thing that we can do if we want to have influence on somebody else's life, and that is we got to continue to build. We build into others' lives. Christian comedian Shonda Pierce, she talks about her mom in her book, Second Row Piano Side. She says that for her and her sisters, her mom was the drama coach, the piano teacher, and the live-in Emily Post. She says, quote, during the course of the talent contest, the scripture memorization, the recitals, a belief system was structured. She said that of her mom actually working, my mom worked as a stonemason, laying a solid, intricate teaching that would someday form a foundation. You see, my mom was a bricklayer. My mom was a bricklayer. Every time you invest in somebody else's life, that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, that's disciple making, isn't it? One brick at a time, a relationship at a time. It's one-on-one. It's influence that we have. And we have it in the lives of our children, of course, but we have it in others' lives. And so when we teach a lesson, when we repeat for them the principle of a spiritual truth, we're just laying another brick on the foundation of their lives. Your words have special power. You can do it. You can do it. Now that carries a lot of weight from a parent because you know them best. So I encourage you, continue to speak into your children's lives, continue to speak into other people's lives, continue to encourage, and you build up. Now last year we went through a series called One at a Time. And at the end of that series, we had another little series called Bless. And maybe you remember it. It was a series about how we can influence someone else's life and what we need to do with that. And there was the Bless principles. And at the end of our service today, I'm going to share something with you to help you in this process. But I wanted to review that because I believe if we're talking about having influence in our children's lives, if we're talking about having influence in anybody else's life, then this is a process. This is a principle that we really need to instill. And I think we need to be reminded of this over and over. How do we have influence in someone's life? Well, the first one is in the Bless principle is B. We've already talked about it. You begin with prayer. You begin with prayer, and that is key. And what I'm going to share with you at the end of our time today is about an app that's going to help us to pray for our neighborhood. And so we'll talk about that. But obviously, we got to begin with prayer. The next one is L. We need to listen to the needs of others. We listen. It's such a lost art in our society today, is listening. Because all we want to do is respond. Social media is all about that. We respond. We don't listen. We don't listen to one another. Well, we need, if we're going to have influence, we need to listen to what someone has to say about their needs, about who they are. With our children, we need to listen. We need to emulate that listening. We need that. That needs to be the example. Begin with prayer, listen, and then my favorite one, eating together, right? There's something special about eating a meal together. I mean, ever since I've learned the Bless practices, and I open up Scripture and I see Jesus, I see it over and over and over, and it just jumps out. There was something special, and it communicated something, that there was value in another person when you ate together. And so eating together is important. The family table has become a lost art. It's become a lost art. And I think it is something that we need to put back into our routine. And that is sitting down, having a meal together with the phone someplace else, right? Maybe a phone basket someplace else. Sitting down and communicating and talking about the day, it opens up the avenue for you to listen. But it also moves on in the Bless practice. The next one is S, serving somebody else with love. When you serve somebody else, you have great influence. Now, I don't need to belabor this point for you moms at all. Some of the greatest servants. You emulate that, and thank you for that. The last S is this. You share your story. You share your story. If you want to have influence, you got to say, this is what I've experienced. This is what God has done in my life. This is who Jesus is to me. If we want to have influence, then we need to put these kind of practices into practice. The blessed practices. Begin with prayer. Listen to someone's story. Eat together. Serve one another. And share your story. And in that regard, we are like bricklayers in a relationship. Your words go a long way. Mom, you are a bricklayer. Encourage your kids, build them up. They need to hear it. It's never too late to start, and they never outgrow the need for their mom. So say what you can to help your children, young or old, help them to achieve their potential. There's one more thing that I think we can do that would maximize our influence in other people's lives, and also especially in the lives of our children. And that is, we got to continue to hang in there. Continue to hang in. We look at the example of Mary, Jesus' mother. When Jesus was dying on the cross, his brothers had rejected him. Nearly all of the disciples, they had abandoned him, but his mother was there. It tells us in John chapter 19, verse 25, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother. Your kids need to know that you will always be there for them. They need to know you're just not going to give up on them. I mentioned Denzel Washington earlier, and he, in that story, he talked about his mom's faith in him that kept him going. This is what he said. He said, my mother never gave up on me. I messed up in school so much that they were sending me home, but my mother always sent me right back. When your child fails, you can make sure that they never fail alone. Never fail alone. And when they feel the whole world is turned against them, make sure they know that it's the whole world minus one. God has said to us in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5, I will never leave you or forsake you. In the Great Commission, when we invest in somebody else's life, it says, I will be with you always to the very end of the age. He's with us always. And that's what we need to do for one another. If we're going to have influence, we've got to hang in there. We're all human. People are going to let you down. Your kids are going to let you down. You're going to let them down. Your children need to hear this, that they need to know it, that your love is unconditional, that you'll never give up on them, and that it's a never give up kind of love. So when your child is good or bad, they need to know that you'll always love them. When they win or when they lose, maybe even a sore loser, they need to know that you will always be there for them. Whether they become successful or end up sporting, God forbid, a prison yard tattoo, they need to know that you're going to hang in there with them, right? As long as it takes for them to become the person that they're capable of being. Don't give up. Don't give up. You know, moms, this is a special day, and we're here to say thank you for the role that you've played in the lives of your sons and your daughters. And the truth is that the world will never know the sacrifices that you've made. As a matter of fact, your kids will never understand the sacrifices that you paid. I mean, I look at the sacrifices that I make for my kids and my grandkids, and I still don't kind of recall and understand what my mom did for me. We can't sufficiently say thank you, but we try. Thank you for your prayers. Don't stop. Don't stop. Thank you for your encouragement. Keep going. Keep encouraging. Keep investing. And thank you for your persistence. And I'm sorry for when we all screw up. But thank you for loving us anyway. Thank you for your influence in the lives of your sons and your daughters. And you know what? I thank you. And this is just not just for the ladies in the room. This is for everybody here. I thank you for your influence in this local church. Thank you. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for investing in this little body of believers that makes a difference in our local community and around the world. Thank you.